Mind your P's and Q's, we're live.
Hello, Quad Cities. Hello, Quad Cities. That's right. Hello, Quad Cities. Hello, Comanche. Ew. Good.
Pen drops for the next 2 minutes.
You always, every time. Good crowd tonight. I like it.
He seems to hit that 30 seconds.
All right, it is 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get this meeting underway. I would please ask that everybody put your cell phone on silent. Roll call, please, Tony.
Councilman Bowman,
Here.
Councilman Edens,
Here.
Councilman Farrell,
Here.
Councilman Klon,
Here. Here.
Councilman Weller.
Here.
All right, next up, we will have a moment of silent prayer. Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
I'll make the motion. I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Klon,
Yes.
Councilman Edens,
Yes.
Councilman Farrell,
Yes.
Councilman Weller,
Yes.
Councilman Bowman.
Yes.
First up, we have a public hearing, proposed sale of interest in real estate between the city of Comanche, Iowa and Stephen E. Reckman and Susan K. Reckman. We will open that at 6:01.
Your Honor, we did not put out a sheet for people to sign up, so, oh, there is one?
There is
Yeah,
one
there's
up
one.
there.
Well, we didn't make an announcement for people to sign up, so my recommendation would be to if people are gonna speak on either of these public hearings, just let them come up and then identify their name and address so we can write that down because it's required for the record.
Okay.
And then you can do a 3-minute counter on your
Yep.
phone. That's acceptable.
I didn't think a public hearing was a 3-minute counter.
Oh, well, no, that's right.
There's not
That's
a
right.
public
You're
hearing.
right. My bad. That's at the end of the thing. No, there is no time limit on public comment for public hearing. You're correct. Thank you for that. I've got too many.
Okay.
All right, and I don't see anybody wishing to speak at this time, so we will,
If you're willing to speak, just now would be the time.
Now again,
yes.
Yes,
and this is about,
the proposed sale.
because I have no idea, oh, I'm sorry, Dave Willis, 1433 Third Street in Comanche. Thank you. I have no idea where this came from. I don't know any backstory on this, if there was anything, or if this spur of the moment being sold, was it put out to bid or anything like that? If the family buys this park, can they sell it right away?
It's not the whole park.
If so, why doesn't the city keep it and sell it for themselves? It'll probably bring more money for the city.
It's
Okay.
only 20 foot, sir.
Okay, sir. Selling the other pocket park? The Maxon? Do we know about that? Is that gonna happen also, or part of it? My family's got some memorial benches in there, so if it's gonna be sold and taken away from the riverfront.
We don't have any
I'd
other
like to
parks
know.
for sale, correct? We
No,
don't, we've not
there's
had any
no-
discussion about selling any other city property, but.
Okay, I didn't know that this was gonna be for sale either, otherwise I would have bid on the property.
No, there's,
Okay, so my thought too is the city selling the pocket park, so the only city-owned riverfront is at the library? So we're gonna push everybody to go to the library and use it down there.
No, we're,
we own multiple parks along the riverfront, sir.
Along the riverfront, and could you speak on those, please? Maxon, Chicago Street,
We are not selling those.
okay?
there's
Okay,
been no discussion about selling any of that property.
okay.
Zero.
Why are we selling this piece?
It might help if perhaps the city administrator could give a brief history of what this is about.
Sure. And maybe this will answer the question for a lot of people. So a number of years ago, Mr. Stamp, who owned that house,
Yep.
approached the city council about buying 20 feet on the side into Chicago Street Park and 20 feet in the front right of way. That survey was recorded at the county recorder's office, but there was no sale of the land. So for the longest time, everybody thought that they owned that property when they did not.
Right.
The council, in fact, turned that down at that time. So now we're in the position where the city needs to utilize some property that Mr. and Mrs. Reckman own at another location for the purpose of drilling the deep well.
People, yep.
And in consideration, for their consideration to sell us that property there,
Okay.
which is being paid for by 3M, so it's not money out of our pocket.
Right,
We have agreed to at least provide the opportunity for them to buy the 20 foot on the side
Mhm.
that everybody thought they owned for the longest time.
Okay.
So that's what this is about. This is, thank you for selling us the land and that we need for the public improvement. We will go and at least present to the public that we sell that 20-foot strip so that they now technically own that portion of the land that
Right.
everybody thought they owned. We are not selling the 20-foot in the front right of way because they no longer need that, because it's a 100-foot right of way there. And we changed the setback to be a 0 setback where we have 100-foot right of way. So they didn't need to ask for the 20-foot in front,
in the
just
front.
a 20-foot on the side.
Okay, so,
That's it.
so the next question would be, the parking that is at that park is not gonna be affected, is that
Nope.
correct?
No, it will
Okay.
not.
Okay, all right. I think that's it on this one. We'll catch you on something else, okay? But no, thank you for the explanation.
sure.
If we would have heard all this before,
Yeah.
I could be home watching TV. But
Well, Mr. Willis, you're always
I-
welcome to call and have a conversation, and
Right.
I'll buy the coffee.
I understand. I understand that. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
folks. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Willis.
Do we have any other public comments on this? All right, and we will,
Make the last call. Last call for any other public comments? On the sale of land? You approach the mic, oh, that's it, on the sale of land.
All
That's
right,
it.
and we will close at 6:07. The next public hearing, vacation of 1,236 square feet consisting of approximately a 20-foot strip of city-owned land, part of Clinton County parcel number 100090500, next to 811 First Street.
So this is a required public hearing to vacate the same property that we are selling to the Reckmans. The legal process means you have to have a public hearing. You have to vacate that land. And that's how we knew that that transaction never happened, because there was never a procedure from city council in the minutes to vacate the land that everybody thought they owned. So that's how we knew that process never happened. Then we went back and found the minutes on it. So this hearing is for the ordinance, because you have to change it by ordinance. You have to vacate by ordinance, is to vacate the same portion that we're considering to sell to the Reckmans.
All right, and we will open that at 6:08. Is there any public comments on this? Nobody online besides Clinton Herald. Last call. All right, and we will close that at 6:08 as well. Is there any public comments on agenda topics? If there is, please come to the podium and state your name and address. All right, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Bond. Councilman Edens. Councilman Farrell.
Yes.
Councilman Weller.
Yes.
Councilman Bowman.
Yes.
First up under unfinished business, discussion of CPKC Railroad and EMS services. Councilman Klon.
Thank you. I think we need to, or I'd like to have us revisit conversations with the railroad concerning EMS service. I think we need to make a team effort between the railroad and us to find out why it gets blocked, and if it does, and what can be done to open it if it needs to be opened because of emergency services. I've talked to a friend of mine that worked for the railroad for years, and he was in some kind of management position. He lived in Omaha for several years, worked for Union Pacific, which is different than KPKC, or CPKC, but railroads, for the most part, are railroads because they do intertwine and use the same tracks and cars and things like that. He said things can be done, and we need to be talking to the right people. And with that, I had a conversation with Chief Schutte about this, and Dave has agreed to help make some contacts that he knows. And Dave, if you want to take it from here, and if anybody has any questions on what might happen or what can happen, I can answer those.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman. So not a new issue to Comanche, but obviously we know that increased concern when the railroad merger went through. So we have longer trains, more frequent trains, things like that. So that's not what is that question. The question is, the risk to the folks on the other side of the tracks, and how do we bridge that gap and try to ensure that. So talked about different things, a lot of things that maybe aren't feasible. So I guess at this point we're looking at feasible. So I did reach out last week to a contact that I have at CP in the hazardous materials department, which that's not his area, but that was just a person that I've trained with and worked with. And so he put me in touch, and I did speak with someone from the railroad today that he's going to email me some more information. But basically what I told him where we're at is what we'd like to know is what's currently in place by CPKC to minimize blockages and delays along the tracks that would put us in the situation where emergency services would be delayed. And so he's putting that together. He didn't get, I spoke to him this morning, and obviously he has more than one thing to do. So I don't have that, but I will have that. But he did share some information that he would have in that report that he would give me. One of the things that they did was they enhanced that switch at 4th Avenue. So it's automatic now. So what he said was that eliminates the fact that the trains have to stop, let off the conductor, unlock the switch, move the switch, verify the switch, lock the switch in its new position, get back on the train, and then proceed. So now that's done automatically before they get there. But that also is part of the reason, my understanding is why the trains are slowed down, because if they're switching, they can't go at the same speed if they're switching tracks. So that's part of the slowdown. The other thing that he reiterated to me is that to make sure that we document anytime that the crossings are blocked. And there's a number right at the crossing, and that'll be in that report as well, that report that and report it immediately so that they can track that down. And he even gave me a cell phone number. So he said we can call and text him that information so that he can follow up immediately and see, why was the train stopped? How long was it stopped? Was there, what was the issue? So, because he said it's kind of difficult to address an issue that we haven't had a lot of issues. We've had a few delays from the trains, but that's why it's important that we document those each and every time that happens. But I'm not sure what else all is in there, but that was the initial step, would be give us a list of all the mechanisms and procedures that you have in place to try to make sure that our citizens are safe and that you minimize those delays and those stoppages. And then once we get that, then we can work from there and figure out, are there other things that can be done? And what, in a case of an emergency, and there is a train stop, what are the procedures for that? And how do we move forward and get across the tracks as quickly as possible to try to minimize those delays? But that's kind of where we're at in a nutshell. But to me, it's a good starting point. It was a very good, probably 15, 20-minute conversation that I had today, very open, willing to listen to the concerns and seemed willing to, work with us so that we can all come together to try to avoid some type of issue down the road. And I told him that's the concern. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And so we want to be prepared for that when.
The gentleman I talked to, thank you, Dave, the person I talked to even said it could be something as simple as just having a way to communicate with the engineer and conductor so that we can get a crossing cleared by breaking a train. If they knew that, they could help, and we could help them, maybe give them transportation to the nearest crossing, whatever, okay? So part of that's going to be trying to find a way to communicate with those people when that happens.
Right.
Chief, did you speak with Larry Lloyd?
No, I spoke with Andy Cummings.
Did he? Oh, he may be back in his position because Larry Lloyd had taken over for a while. I know Andy had some issues. Okay.
Yeah, nope, he is back. I spoke with him this
okay.
morning, so.
We do have on our website, on the front page of the Comanche IA website, informing people when you have a crossing blocked, go get the number. And we even list the ID numbers of those crossings for people and where they're at. So they can call CPKC. The phone number's on here. I've shown it to you right now. I can make it bigger. We've had that on our website for the longest time. Part of the challenge is actually getting people to do it, to make the call. I've made a few calls when I've been around and they've been blocked. But I don't know that those calls are being called in. It's just people will get upset that the crossings are blocked. We do need their help to actually make those calls, because if nobody makes the calls, they don't know anything's going on.
And that's what he reiterated too. He said it's important to do it as quickly as possible, not to call in and say, a couple months ago, there was a train here for 15 minutes. The time and the length of the stoppage and all those things, if they can be documented, if not that minute, within the hour or at least the same day, those will all be things that can help us track and work towards a solution. But like I said, I'm happy with the starting point. Once he sends me that information, we can look it over and then we can put our heads together and figure out, what else are some other possible solutions that we can try to minimize the impact on our community.
And these numbers are supposed to get you to a dispatcher, but the gentleman I talked to said there's not always a dispatcher available that answers that call. It could be someone else. So the dispatcher might not be readily available to do anything about it.
That was not the indication that I got with the gentleman I spoke to this morning, but I'm not saying that. He said you will get a live person. That is the quickest way that you will get your information, and they will get that relayed to the train. So. And
maybe if we had some way to communicate with the people in the train, that'd be the quickest way of doing that. Mm-hmm. And so out of this conversation, unless anybody got anything else, I would like to see us move forward with Dave taking the lead on this, possibly with the help from Chief Smits if needed, because they're both emergency people. and see if they can't give their contacts and see what can be done.
Yep, absolutely. Like I said, once I have that information, I would hope by the next council meeting, I would have that information of what their current, safety policies are as far as blockages and things like that, stoppages, and I can share that with you and I'll keep you updated. And then, once we have that, we can figure out what the next step is to move forward and try to make more improvements. So.
If everybody's in agreement.
I think the message here really does need, you guys have said it a couple of times, and Dave's made it clear, they need the data. And if they don't have the data that there's a blockage going on, then they don't know that there's a blockage going on.
If they have the right equipment on their rail system, they know there's a blockage.
And that may be. I don't know that all their
I
systems
don't
have.
know that right equipment.
Right.
Union Pacific does, and that's who this guy worked for, so he
Right.
couldn't talk to this particular rail line.
Sure.
But there is equipment out there that will tell you that they are stopped.
The most impact I think we can have, and Andy's gonna probably tell you this, is getting people to call that number when there's a blockage.
Yeah, the more
The more
documentation
the
we
data,
have
the
that
more
that it's an
documentation-
issue is better for us to
The
get
more
somewhere.
documentation you have, the more they're gonna pay attention. So we have something to say, yes, you're blocking it a lot. It's not, they're not just gonna take our word for it. You have to call, because they'll be able to recognize that the train is stopped there. And as long as, then when they have that data compiled, it's kind of like us when we ask people to report certain things using mobile 311, where there's a water main break or something like that. Or if they use that and we record that data, now we have actionable data to work with.
And if people do call, they need these ID numbers.
Yep, and they're right on the website.
And even if you can see a rail car number, they can go off of that also, because that's in
Yeah.
that's in the transcript of where the train is.
Emergency, they have to say emergency.
Yes,
Otherwise, I'll tell you, the dispatchers and everybody else are not gonna want to have somebody walk back to the train and break it just so somebody can get across for the heck of it.
but as we're talking about, it
It's
is
a waste of-
mainly for
waste of their
emergencies.
time and money.
I mean, it's bad enough people wait for a train, but emergency is the thing we're trying to eliminate here.
So I don't know if we just continue to put this on the agenda for updates, or you just want me to come back with updates during my segment, or however you want to do it, but I'll keep you updated on the progress as we make it.
I think if we just wait for your segment, that'd be good enough.
Okay.
Once it's on the agenda, until it's resolved and closed out, it stays on the agenda. And it's fine. If we don't have an update, just table it till the next meeting, but leave it on the agenda until we get some clarification and finalize a policy.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thanks, Chief.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I could, just to bring Councilman Klon, you're addressing an immediate concern on an emergency, but just to let you know that back in 2022, we contacted the Canadian Pacific line on behalf of the city regarding the state law that says that railroads are responsible for paying for overpasses. I have 3 letters from my file, basically starting in October 24 of 2022 through November 22 of 22, basically saying the railroad has no intention of following any state laws. They have federal preemption. They're going to do on their property whatever they want to do on their property, and that they don't intend to follow any local ordinances or state laws. And this comes from their Stenson law firm out of Minneapolis. So we've approached them about trying to deal with the problem on a larger, more permanent basis. And they've had their lawyers, not their employees. We received correspondence from their lawyers basically saying, we're not going to do anything.
Some of that was stemming too from the amount of weeds that grow there. We have a weed ordinance. They don't care.
Yeah, they feel that they can trespass on the city right of way without any, potential liability. And we explained to them the number of households on the riverside of the tracks and the potential people who are at imminent risk. Now, this is before the terrible derailment that happened over in Ohio, where the railroads as a whole, not the Canadian Pacific, but they got some terrible publicity out of the deal. So I think all the railroads are probably trying to be a little more responsive to derailments now than they were in the past. But again, we corresponded with the railroad. They referred it to their legal department, and their legal department said, basically, don't bother us anymore.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
Again,
Yeah,
we can't let it dry. It's something that we need to try and go after.
Yeah.
If we don't work, there's, how far to the top can you take it? We'll see. So we'll try this method and see what happens. Thank you.
Is there any other comments?
Is there any input from the group?
Nope.
Can't do that.
Nope, not till the end of the meeting. First up, under new business, adopt a resolution directing the sale of a portion of real estate to Susan Reckman and Stephen Reckman.
Just for council's understanding, there were some minor typos in the transfer over from PDF to a Word document. It boils down to some of the, like in the directional stuff, it didn't know how to make a degree, so it made a dot or a period. The copy that you have has those corrections in them. So in the PDF packet, those things aren't correct, but those are just actually typos, so.
the survey that was provided by the Reckmans, or the Reckmans surveyor is correct. That does have the correct legal description.
You can see that here.
But in,
That's supposed to be a degree
yeah,
symbol. It's just those things. In the mayor's document, that's corrected on all of those. Even if they were still there, it wouldn't negate the validity of the resolution.
A resolution directing the sale of a portion of real estate located at the parcel of land known as Chicago Street Park 34-81-06 PRT, Vake 9th Avenue, south of SL's First Street. Whereas the city of Comanche reached an agreement for the purchase of land, which includes the sale of a portion of land next to 821 First Street consisting of 1,236 square feet or approximately a 20-foot strip adjacent to said property. And whereas the city of Comanche has determined that all or part of the vacated area in the city of Comanche is acceptable to sell in consideration for the ability to purchase other property owned by Stephen E. Reckman and Susan K. Reckman, which is necessary for public improvement. And whereas the city shall receive a payment of $1,900 for the land as well for legal and recording fees. And whereas an agreement for the city's purchase of the alternate property has been agreed to by the owner. And whereas the city council has accepted the terms of the sale to Stephen E. Reckman and Susan K. Reckman for the price of $1,900. And whereas the city has published notice of and held a public hearing on the proposal to sell the property to Stephen E. Reckman and Susan K. Reckman. And whereas, having considered the matter and any public input received, the Comanche City Council finds the sale of this property to be in the best interest of the city of Comanche. Now therefore be it resolved that the parcel of real estate located at all or part of land legally described as follows.
You don't have to read the legal description. There it is. It's essentially 20 foot next to 821 First Street. And angles off at the bottom towards the river where that retaining wall is. I can show you the picture. For anybody who wants to, this is the picture of it. Here's Chicago Park. It's this strip right here.
I'll make a motion to approve this resolution.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Weller,
yes.
Councilman Farrell,
Yes.
Councilman Klon,
Yes.
Councilman Bowman,
Yes.
Councilman Edens.
Yes.
So just so you know too, I mean, at the end of that resolution, it says pending proper vacation. That's an ordinance. That won't be able to happen until next meeting. This will be the first reading of the ordinance to vacate.
Next up, under new business. First reading of an ordinance vacating 20 foot of city property, approximately 1,200 square feet of what is more commonly known as Chicago Street Park, dedicating it to become part of 821 First Street. An ordinance providing for the vacation of 1,236 square feet or approximately a 20-foot strip of land, more commonly known as Chicago Street Park, adjacent to 821 First Street in the city of Comanche. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Comanche, Iowa. Section 1, purpose. The purpose of this ordinance is to vacate the described right-of-way as more particularly described in the attached Exhibit A, which is attached hereto and incorporated herein by this reference, and thereby relieve the City of Comanche, Iowa of the responsibility for its maintenance and supervision of the property and enable the city to transfer the right-of-way to the adjoining property owner. Section 2, facts found. The City Council hereby makes the following findings of fact. 1, that the described property is acceptable to sell in exchange for consideration on another piece of property in the possession of the owners. 2, that vacation of said right-of-way will not deny access to necessary infrastructure of the city or its utility franchise partners unless otherwise specified under easement agreement as deeded. 3, that the ownership of the secondary consideration is necessary for public infrastructure needs. 4, that the notice of the intended vacation has been published or posted as required by law. Section 3, vacation. The tract of land previously designated as right-of-way as described in the attached Exhibit A located along the northeasterly side of 34-81-06 PRT, Vac 9th Avenue, south of South Lot, First Street, more commonly known as Chicago Street Park, being and same is hereby declared vacated. Section 4, repealer. All ordinances or part of ordinances in conflict with any provision of this ordinance is hereby repealed. Section 5, severability clause. If any section, provision, or part of this ordinance shall be adjudged invalid or unconstitutional, such adjudication shall not affect the validity of this ordinance as a whole or any section, provision, or part thereof not adjudicated invalid or unconstitutional. Section 6, when effective. This ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after its final approval, passage, and publication as provided by law.
Make a motion to approve the reading.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Bowman,
Yes.
Councilman Edens,
Yes.
Councilman Farrell,
Yes.
Councilman Weller,
Yes.
Councilman Klon.
Yes.
Number 3 under new business, junk vehicle ordinance discussion. Councilman Bowman.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, very brief history. At the last planning and zoning meeting, we had a discussion of land use plan. One of the residents asked a question about, what are we doing about junk cars? And city administrator was running that discussion, pointed to 3 of us who were there and said, you need to talk to these 3 council members here. So I had some time to ruminate on that, started a little put out, felt like I was tossed under a bus. I talked to Andrew about it. And I was operating under a misconception, and Andrew apologized for that later, but I did not understand part of the issue with our, because we had 3 years ago talked about junk cars, and we ended up changing the fencing ordinance and some other stuff to encourage owners of junk vehicles, businesses with junk vehicles, put up a fence and hide them. And that didn't happen. And one of the things I didn't understand was our definition of a junk vehicle isn't very good. It doesn't carry a lot of weight. So if you look, there's a couple of write-ups. One's my write-up. If you,
Councilman, can I just interrupt you for a second? Can we bring Chief Schmitz up to explain to folks what we did in that process of analyzing the junk vehicles? Because they put in a lot of work on that.
that's true, they did.
Yeah, let's let them explain what they did and then propose these other changes. Chief,
Okay,
can you
well-
take care of that?
We had 3 officers, and the ordinance enforcement officer, go to 3 different locations, inspected every single one of the cars on those properties, had a list of what the violations or what the description in the ordinance, that fit what a junk vehicle was. And we documented every single vehicle. There was only 2 or 3, that fit that junk vehicle, on all those properties. So, we worked with them to take care of those, but outside of that, one of the major obstacles that we seen was the description of what wheels were or tires. A flat tire that had been sitting on a vehicle for years and years didn't constitute a junk vehicle. So it had the wheel on it, It was just flat, so. But we spent several hours between 3 different locations
Okay.
documenting those, so.
All right, thank you, Chief.
Yes, I just wanted to make it clear that, I mean, they put in a lot of work to try and work with the ordinance.
Right.
And all of the vehicles that were left did not meet the standard of classification as a junk vehicle under our existing ordinance.
Right, that's where I was going. So you got in front of you, everybody's got in front of a couple piece of paper. You got one I prepared, and if you got one of the ones where Dave's printer was failing, I don't want anybody bragging because everybody will want one of those. And then you have the much better paper prepared by Chief Schmitz. He did a lot more work than I did. But so our Iowa Code 321 concerns vehicles. Iowa Code, the state of Iowa in its code does not define a junk vehicle, defines an abandoned vehicle. And so junk vehicles are defined by individual municipalities. I've got the list there. I quoted our 3-10-2 definition of a junk vehicle. And I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. We're all high school graduates, so we can figure that part out. What I would point out, though, you read that definition, and the chief's pointed this out. If I got a car sitting in my driveway with 4 flat tires and a seized motor, it's not a junk vehicle under our ordinance. So I think we have an opportunity, and the thing that got me started was we've heard this from the residents since before I was on council. This is something residents have been asking about. Can we clean up the junkyards on our main drag? And because those are the words of the residents, not my words. That's words we've heard from our residents. They're tired of looking at what they see as junk vehicles. So I looked at, how do other municipalities define junk vehicle? And I found in the city of Wilton, Iowa, and these are just things that came up in a Google search. Wilton has the following 2 paragraphs in its definition, which are separate from other municipalities. Any vehicle not capable of being driven from the place of its location under its own power without additional parts or repairs therein. And another paragraph says, any vehicle, trailer, or semi-trailer not equipped with the number of inflated tires necessary for its operation. So, in other words, if it looks like a piece of junk, maybe it is a piece of junk, and we should be looking at improving our definition. If we want to enforce and want to clean up the appearance, let's improve the definition. And on the other side of that is we would, if I come back and now these 10 vehicles are meeting a new definition of junk vehicle ordinance, we need to get some slack to whatever business owners might be affected. Because, if it's just an individual in a yard, that's a different story. But if I have a business and I've got 10 vehicles, so I put some notes in the bottom here where I felt we should give some time for the staff to identify the junk vehicles per the newly defined ordinance, and then a period of time for property owners to comply before we start an enforcement period. And I'm going to turn it over to Chief Schmitz with his write-up, because he's done a lot more work than I did and his write-up is much better. So
Yeah, I just kind of put out some talking points, just an overview of our city ordinance and some arguments in favor of stricter enforcement as well as arguments against over enforcement. One thing that came up during our investigation was there are some potential zoning protections that do exist for businesses that operate like that. Under code section 310.12.2 exempts vehicles on business premises in appropriately zoned districts. So that's something else that came up as well. And I don't know if the junk vehicle or that zoning protection, which one supersedes each other.
So I think, though, Chief, that would then enforce the fence rule. When they can have junk vehicles in that zoning,
Correct.
but then they have to be behind a fence.
Right. And
That's
that's
where that
all I'm
comes in.
saying is
Right.
that's something else that came up
Yes.
during those
Yeah,
investigations.
we discussed that during that process, and that's what came out of it.
Mhm.
Is you're allowed to have junk vehicles by whatever standard you set as it being a junk vehicle, but if it's classified as a junk vehicle under our ordinance, then it has to be behind a fence.
Right, it's either in a building, hidden behind a fence,
Yep.
or fixed.
Where does that
At
say
the end
that?
there as well.
Huh?
And I detailed that at the end
It's
there
in
as
the
well.
zoning ordinance, chapter
So-
18, I think.
The screening requirement. So I listed some key enforcement challenges on our end, as well as recommendations and proposed amendments to it. So
In chapter 18, you said?
I'm certain it's in chapter 18.
In the zoning, okay.
Because it's an authorized use under that zoning code. But then when it comes, I think the other part is under the fences section that's what we changed. Because then it's, or maybe it might be under that section about auto stuff. It said must be hidden behind a solid 8-foot fence. And when we had a meeting with those businesses, they asked to have that amended to a 6-foot fence because 8-foot fences are expensive, way more expensive. So we brought that to council and council said, okay, well, brought to P and Z. P and Z said, okay, council said, okay. So we did that.
Yeah, we did change that.
Yep.
That was 3 years ago.
We accommodated that request. And then we sent out the inspection force. They found a limited number of things that qualified as a junk vehicle under this ordinance.
So anyway, my thoughts are we should, because this is something the residents have been asking for repeatedly and we're not answering their concern. It seems to me we should strengthen our ordinance to change the definition of a junk vehicle to include more actual junk vehicles and then enforce it. Again, my proposal would also include a grace period for businesses and or anybody else with a junk vehicle to give them time to comply with the new ordinance before we start enforcing. You know, you get in my write-up, I just, put, okay, 6 months, 180 days. You're gonna fix the vehicle, you're gonna hide the vehicle, you're gonna remove the vehicle.
So I have a question for legal.
Okay.
Randy or John, if we have an exceptions rule in there, is it still classified as a junk vehicle? If because I own it and I operate the business, to me, it's not junk. Does the exception actually change the definition of that vehicle? Or is it still classified as a junk vehicle? You know what I'm saying? Am I making sense? What I think we have, and I think we've had since 2006, when that's what got brought up, was that all the way back since 2006.
I can answer that question. This chapter should not apply to the following. This is in 3-10-12. And it's number 1, a vehicle in an enclosed building.
Right.
And then so immediately it doesn't apply. It just no longer, it's not a junk vehicle anymore. It's an enclosed building. And then a vehicle in the presence of a business enterprise, I think Chief talked about that. A vehicle on the premises of a business enterprise operating in a district properly zoned, therefore, as authorized under the zoning ordinance or restricted residence district. And then number 3, a vehicle in an appropriate storage space or depository maintained in a lawful place and lawful manner in the city.
What my concern is, we're making changes to everything before it gets to the exception. And then you get to the exception. Well, it doesn't matter what you change up there if it's an exception anyway. Does that make sense? Am I wrong? I mean, my understanding is that we've had a problem with why this hasn't been done since before 2000. It goes back all the way to 2006. There's some reason why we've been trying to get it done since 2006, but it just doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have this exceptions in there, no matter what you change before it,
But we'd have to. We would have to modify the exceptions.
exceptions is,
As
I
part
think,
of
is
the-
what would have to be addressed.
I
And
think,
Chief,
Councilman,
I
though,
alluded to
the
that.
reason it hasn't been addressed since 2006 is because most of those vehicles didn't classify as junk vehicles under our ordinance anyway. So what do you have to enforce? Even taking into consideration the concept that what you're bringing up, and I understand what you're getting at, those still don't classify as junk vehicles anyway.
So I'm gonna put it in my world. I build houses, so I work with lumber. And the half sheet of OSB is worth something to me, but it's not to you, or whomever. But it has value to me, and I can't just throw it into my junk pile. But that's not even my concern. My concern is if we change it, it doesn't matter what the definitions are if it gets exempted anyway. You could name it whatever you want.
I think the point, though, is they can still have junk vehicles there, even if we change the ordinance. They just got to be behind a fence.
In 2022,
Exemption.
the fence ordinance 18.60.270 basically says junkyards and auto storage yards must have a solid 6-foot fence. So the cars are still classified as junk vehicles, but they have to be within a fenced-in area. So it previously was the 8 feet that was talked about, and that was reduced down to 6 feet. in June of 2022.
If I understand what you're saying is, I think we can address that, but we'd have to go to this exemption 310-10-12 number 2 and change it. So just because it's sitting on the business enterprise doesn't make it an exception. It's only would be exception if it's hidden.
This is in this.
We would have to eliminate that exemption.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think the argument that has been made in the past, because I've sat out here for a long, long time,
Mhm.
was that this isn't junk to me. It's because it's what I use.
Right.
It's my inventory or whatever they called it at the time.
And what I'm
And
saying is,
Won that,
okay, let's
obviously.
put a fence up in front of it. That's all.
Yeah, I don't know that that was one. I think it was.
They're
Those
still
are junk
there.
I know, but
You know, they've been there since.
the business owners are allowed to maintain inventory for the purpose of running their business. Of course they are. But what I'm trying to do is address the repeated public comments
Mhm.
saying, people driving down South Washington Boulevard shouldn't have to drive past and never seen Comanche before, are driving past a whole bunch of what are, in most people's opinions, junk vehicles. So you hide them.
There's no public comments at this
Oh, you like
time.
the railroad and have a whole
Sir,
bunch of
there
people.
is no public comments at this time. I would please ask that you keep those till the end of the meeting.
I get that. I just think that I think we should strengthen the junk vehicle ordinance. I'm not arguing with that at all. I just think that this exception thing, for somehow, this has been allowed to go on since 2006 and it was
Right.
complained about in 2006. And
Mhm.
every so often it gets brought up. We've been here multiple times to hear it. My question is, why can't we get it done? And I think it's because of this exceptions rule.
And
I'm not debating on whether or not we shouldn't change that part. I wouldn't take that position. And maybe you are correct, and that's a good position to have. If council is going to consider opening up the junk vehicle ordinance, and this may be, except if you're gonna open the ordinance, make all the changes you need to make in one shot, and there you go.
Agreed.
Find
And
every-
I'm not trying to dump on someone's business. What I'm trying to do is we've been being asked for a long time so why can't we deal with this? And to answer your question, part of this is, I didn't understand this until just recently. I didn't understand how this is why why nothing was done. I didn't understand, and I take that on my own self, I should have looked into it a little further and I didn't.
I'd like to add, this isn't just about the businesses.
No.
There are people with junk vehicles, what I would consider junk vehicles, on their property, but they still don't rise to the level of junk vehicles under the city ordinance.
Right.
So it's not, I want to make it clear, it's not
That's
just
true,
about the
yeah, yeah.
businesses.
Yeah, I'm not, yeah.
That is the citizen complaint, but we know that there are also vehicles that don't rise to the level of the classification, but they don't work. They're flat tired. They've got other things wrong with them. So strengthening the ordinance would assist in some improvement to Washington Boulevard in those business areas, but it would also assist the code enforcement officer in some of the private properties
in
where
the
they have junk
residential
vehicles in
areas,
their
too.
driveway or in their backyard.
Yes. So, I'll turn it over. So those are my ideas. I think, like I said, Chief Schmidt did a much better write-up than I did, and I've got some, he's got some good ideas there. I like the note or the definition from Wilton with the not capable of being driven from the place of its location on its own power without additional parts or repairs. Certainly, the chief has some points of people who have businesses and people if I bring my broken Jeep to a business, I'd certainly not want it towed off as junk because it's sitting in a business waiting to get repaired. So we'd have to have some kind of exception for that or some time constraints.
I can comment on that too, Chief, because we've had this discussion before, and when Councilman Varner was on staff or on council, he would relay the stories of when he was a deputy. And I think it was Mr. Reckman, you happened to be here, that if you had something going on where a car was going to be outside and it might be considered a junk vehicle, you would just call the chief and say, hey, don't ticket me for having a junk vehicle out. I'm working on this car and the parts are coming in this day. Is that correct? You just let the chief know, and it's, okay, we're aware, we're not gonna come by and hammer you for that. I think the purpose of this is the, not only the ones that have been at certain places for a long time, but then the vehicles who just show up there and they never move. And it starts adding on.
I had one of those businesses last night who never contacted me because it was gonna be an extended insurance adjustment case.
Mhm.
License plate, description of the vehicle. It was that.
Okay, good.
And so there may be something to add to that to say that the guidelines or whatever can be waived by direction of the chief of police pending
Right.
outcome for however many days they can determine for that. I do appreciate that the businesses end up with vehicles that may be junk vehicles, but they've got to wait a while for parts.
Mhm.
And as long as they communicate what's going on, it's fine.
Well, before we really get into this though, we get complaints, but where are the complaints coming from? Is it a majority of the people? Or is it just a few? And you can't always go through and do all those changes just because a few that speak up a lot. You know, it doesn't know, I mean, you might not like that idea, but I mean, we should be governed by the majority, not by the few.
All I can say to that, Councilman Weller, is you can go back to the survey that we did, and it was one of the highest ranking comments.
Well,
Made
that's,
by citizens who
and that's
filled
what,
out that
that's what I'm
survey.
saying, is that's
Now,
where,
that survey is
if you got
old.
that kind of documentation, yes. let's
However,
look into it.
the thing that brought this about was reviewing the land use plan, and that was one of the concerns that was listed back in 2006, when they did that land use plan and that community interaction. It was an issue then, and when we did the survey in 2018, it was still an issue. Citizens were bringing that up. So from that standpoint, you probably hear more complaints about it than I do.
I got one other quick question.
This
This
is
is
just a point to
for
consider.
Chief.
I agree. with you.
Chief, so when we issue a citation for a junk vehicle, it typically goes to whom? The owner that the junk vehicle is sitting on, or to the person that owns the vehicle? To the property owner? Okay.
So I could pick on you for a second. If you have a tenant with a junk vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
you get tagged.
Yeah, and I have that. So, because in our definition, like, there's currently a car, which you've probably seen, Chief, at my apartments. He got a flat tire going over the railroad tracks, but he cannot find another rim. He says he's searched for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. He can't find another rim to put another tire on it.
Oh,
My concern is though, is who bears the responsibility for that? You know what I mean? Is it, and even in people these automotive places, there's people that take their car in and it's valued at $1,500 and it's going to cost $1,200 to fix, and they just never come get it.
mhm.
Now we're going to give these guys a citation for someone else abandoning their vehicle literally at their place. And I do know that happens because I do know one that's dropped off currently up the road.
They do that. I've
So-
heard that issue too. And, the result of this is if they put up a fence, they can move it behind the fence and then it's not a problem.
I just don't know if I
That's-
want to.
Well,
That's why we don't, down behind the old roller rink, there's a fenced in area with a bunch of junk vehicles. There's not a complaint about that.
But could you imagine
well, but there's also, if somebody does drop a car off and leave it, it becomes an abandoned vehicle,
Mhm.
and there's a whole ordinance to deal with that. And it's also defined in Iowa code.
Mhm.
So there's plenty of legal means to dispose of an abandoned vehicle.
I think that my couple concerns I have is, let's say they put up a 6-foot fence and
Mhm.
you see a lot of vehicles, especially a lot of trucks without even all jacked up. They're tall, they're huge. And now they're over that 6 foot,
Mhm.
right? Now, is that out of compliance?
No,
No,
and it probably wouldn't be if it was an 8-foot fence. that was a decision that council made to accommodate the request of those property owners.
I get it. It just said, it just said solid and hidden. So I'm thinking of our verbiage here, right? I want to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a corner or something. And then I think of, let's say they do put up a fence and they got an entrance, right? They drive in and out of it. Does it have to have a gate? Because there's going to be, if you're going to be able to drive by, you're still going to be able to see part of that. I get it's nitpicky. I'm just saying, if you throw that out there, someone's going to call out and say,
It's
hey, I put up a fence
for
and,
council on how you direct it
know.
to be enforced, as far as I'm concerned.
and my last part of that is the enforcement. So what are we talking here? Have we thought of what, if somebody does it and it's out of that time
Well,
frame?
there's already, I mean, that
know.
part's defined in here already about what you do about it. So what we're looking at is making it harder to maintain a junk vehicle that's really a junk vehicle on your, without hiding it or just doing something, fixing, hide it, remove it. There's already the enforcement provision's already in here. So we don't have to change that. But what I was proposing is we look at our definition and see if we can change that and identify more junk vehicles. That's it. So
I believe that's something we could work on.
okay, so what is our next step then? Do we,
I think council should, because it's an agenda item, and John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you should, I think, take a vote of the council to direct staff to work on making proposed amendments to the ordinance. Would that be fair to do? Sure. That's what I would request, a vote from council to direct staff to propose amendments to the junk vehicle ordinance.
I would entertain that motion.
And then that time, then we'd have to vote again to say whether we like
Amend
what
the
that's
ordinance.
then
been.
we come back
Right,
and that gives
and what we would do there is make that proposal, set it to council, get your feedback on what you like and don't like, and we have that discussion in open session, and then make those amendments. And then probably have a first reading of the ordinance as amended. We can amend it on the fly, have that done, and then go to the second reading and then third reading and.
and all that gives our members of the public who have concerns time to talk to address council with their
This
concerns
would
over
probably,
this.
if you wanted, if we started working on it tomorrow, you could have it on the agenda for discussion at the next meeting and have a first reading of what we propose, and then you can make changes to it, adopt the first reading as amended. Then you go to the second reading, which would be in August, third reading, the second meeting in August to approve. So that gives people a month-ish from the time the first reading is adopted.
I'll make that motion.
Do you also address 18.60?
I'll look at that, chief.
Be part of a package.
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Edens,
Yes.
Councilman Klon,
Yes.
Councilman Farrell,
Yeah, yep, yes.
Councilman Bowman,
Yes.
Councilman Weller.
Yes.
All right, next up under new business, discussion regarding sewer issues on 14th Place and Hiawatha.
Evening, Mayor, Council. It's been a pretty rough 2 weeks for 7 or 8 residents around town and Public Works as well. I think some of the residents may be here tonight. We went to start the splash pad up last Friday and it was seeming to do well. About 4:30, we got a call. There was backup sewers. So we ran over, shut off the splash pad right away, stopped the extra flow, ran the jetter truck trailer out there. Found a plug and went through it. Problem is our jetter isn't removing the entire plugs. It's just kind of punching holes in it, it turns out. Tried it again on Saturday, same thing happened. And I believe there was, I've heard 2 numbers, 6 or 7 houses got water damage in the basement, and we're taking care of that. Immediately on Monday with with Dan's direction, called a Klein Sewer and Cleaning, and they came with a camera truck on Wednesday and Friday of this past week. And hindsight, we could have spent, is that the?
That's it.
Okay, hindsight, we could have spent that $7,000 beforehand. If we'd have done that and didn't find anything, then we'd be accused of wasting, $7,000. In that camera, I've got all the videos. I've got some stills. I'm working on making a package for all you to see. There are many problems. Do we also have the second estimate that Klein sent over?
I don't have it here.
Sorry.
Here, $144,000.
Yes, sir. Just from his video, he can go look at the crack in the pipe and go, I can fix that with this amount. Sees the extended in service from a house and say, okay, to do that, it costs this much to fix that.
Mhm.
And it comes up to $144,000 estimate. And he goes, I'm going to estimate high, but 110 to 144,000, that's 5 blocks. So how many blocks are in this city that have similar issues? And that run of pipe, 14th and down Hiawatha, was all roughly built in the mid 60s is our best guess, between 60 to 70. Half the town or more is that old or older, if not 2/3 of the town. So we have a large looming problem coming with some of these sewer pipes. In the videos, I'll end up being able to show you the stills. You'll see where the root balls are just coming in through cracks and catching material. And he could actually show us, I think I passed that picture around, the hole that our jetter punched in on a 10-inch pipe. Well, it was only about 2 to 3 inches in diameter. The rest was still covered with roots and just garbage that it collected.
I can pull that up, I think,
Okay.
Chief. Yeah.
So even though our jetter goes through and our guys feel it go through and they can feel it, the stoppage and going again, it didn't really do anything except break a small hole in the dam. The dam is still there. So when Klein came in and did all the camera and everything, he cameraed so far, and then he'd run the jetter through and clear up the problems. And so we have a before and after in the videos showing exactly what it looks like once he was done. And let's see, he finished on Friday morning on Hiawatha. All of us went over immediately and we ran a fire hose down the manhole at 12th place in Hiawatha. Started at an estimate of 168 gallons a minute based on a flow meter we had sitting there, and watched the manholes. And we sat there for an hour. We had a problem. One of the residents came out and said they had some problems. We got a back and forth, got some questions answered, and turns out that was a problem from the jetter from earlier, had pushed some air and water up into his sewer line, and that's what caused that little 10 paper towels is all it took for him to clean it up. So we started the test again after lunch, ran it for an hour and 40 minutes, and we had 213 gallons a minute going through that line, had no problems with anybody. The splash pad is estimated to run between 100 and 125 gallons a minute. So we're running twice as much through that sewer line than what the splash pad is going to do. So we know it's handling that much flow. Moving forward, if everything goes as well, every spring, we're just going to bring Klein or another similar company in with a camera and a jet truck and take out the roots. Cause he said 3 months to 6 months, they'll be back. Will they be back as bad? Don't know. But that's one thing it's going to have to be a straight maintenance every spring on that particular line because of the splash pad. Then we're looking at buying our own root cutter bit for our jetter that does the same thing. And we're just going to have to go through all the problem sewers, especially, and then just go through town with them and try and get ahead of it. Love to have a camera truck. Guys who used to work with in Clinton, I just talked to them. They bought one, $212,000 in a trailer. So that's a big chunk of money. And I think that's well more than my entire sewer budget. So that's something I don't think we can afford. Now the $7,000 on this bill, $6,800, again, 5, and we actually had another block on there, so call it 6 blocks. How many blocks are in town to have him come in and do all of that everywhere? That's another big chunk of money.
Mhm.
So those are the things we have to think about if we do this quarter this year and this quarter of town this year and this, and walk our way through, that's one possibility. But where the money is gonna have to come from somewhere, we don't have that kind of money in the fund right now. So we're gonna have to figure out some funding mechanism to bring the cash up to be able to pay that if that's the route we want to go.
In discussing this situation with some of my colleagues, a lot of cities will section off the whole city in quadrants. And this size, probably 4 quadrants, and they'll do 1 quadrant a year, where they do camera and cutting and jetting with a high pressure jetter. So that quadrant is being done every 4 years. They go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So every 4 years you're doing it. I think as we sit right now with the situation we have over there, we're going to have to address that again in 6 months. I think that's what they were saying, right?
Yeah.
About 6 months, you're just going to have another problem over there. You're going to have to fix it. And I'm sorry, I can't get to the picture. What he's talking about though is the picture we posted on our Facebook page that it shows the entire pipe full of wet wipes. If you look at the lower right-hand corner of that picture, you can see the hole where the jetter went through.
The vast majority of that was roots. Excuse me. It was roots with catching some wipes and,
Yeah.
and but like I
Right.
said, the roots are the big thing
And
for us.
that is really the issue though. It is the roots in the system that need to be cut out. And then as wet wipes come by, they grab onto the roots and they make the clog.
And on the, just to touch something on the estimate for repairs, he broke it down onto multiple types of repairs. There is a crack in a break in the tile. So when the 10-inch tile gets over a certain level, it's starting to go out of the tile in the soil. So we need to repair that as soon as possible. So the other stuff can kind of hold on, but the sooner the better on all the repairs.
And that could be done with lining, right?
If we line.
Yeah, if you line it, you don't have to dig that up to do it. You can just line that.
Yeah, I've seen that at League of Cities. There was a
Yep.
company at League of Cities last year had a liner. It was a lot less expensive than replacing the pipe.
You're not
And
digging
that's
up the
something,
street to do it.
and that's something we have to do down by well 8 also. Once that, if that's finalized there, to get that sewer line lined. So, any questions I can maybe answer?
On this estimate here, we were sent the $144,000. That's not on the agenda right now.
Nope.
No, it's just
So-
information. Yeah.
It's just their guesstimate for
Yep.
fixing that line we've already jetted out for all the stuff they identified during the camera run.
Correct.
I think we'll have once they give the report.
Yeah.
You'll have a more complete picture of what the proposal will be to do that work, if you want to do that work. I think really the point of this is to let you know what happened, how we responded to it, why we responded the way we did, and what the outcome of the repair work was done.
Right.
And what the expectation is for correcting that problem there and notifying you that this is more of a problem all over the city than it is just over
Well,
there.
yeah, this is something.
And we're city council is gonna have to come to some kind of directive for staff to start coming up with proposals to do this work.
If you read the you watch the news, it'd be buried amongst all this stuff. This is not just a Comanche problem.
No.
Aging infrastructure like this is a problem everywhere.
And to touch
of
on
course
that, we've had 2 water main breaks in the last 2 days.
Yeah, and of
Old
course,
pipes.
it's not cheap.
Does camera also identify problems with the residence lines?
Yes, there are several inlets where the, excuse me, where the residence sewer line is coming in and it's coming in 2, 3, 5 inches in where it should be almost flush. So that's something, his equipment can't get in there and just cut it off. There may be other companies that have that, but that is also a dig up item. That's a resident issue really, because it's their service. But how do you make the resident dig it up and spend, I think it's 11 or 14,000 estimate on there on each one of
For
those?
each one, yeah.
Yeah.
And that situation, Councilman, is one of the reasons why we should be more vigilant in authorizing who works on our sewer lines. Because in that situation, that connection, and Bob, you can correct me if I'm wrong, whenever that house was done and they made that connection, I don't think that was inspected on how deep they went into the sewer line.
No, that's, I had actually reached out to one of the council members, tell him, I bet you you're gonna find this, because I've seen it done.
Yeah.
You know, they poke the hole, they drop a little stub piece with an elbow and drop it on top. My question is, which I'll wait till the report comes out, but I'd like to know where on the pipe these taps are at, you know, what elevation.
Yeah.
Most
we're
are,
at.
most are in the 1, 2 o'clock, 11, 10 o'clock position, most of them. A couple are down to the 9.
Yeah, because we've seen that in a couple other areas where we've had something cambered before when Mr. Hilgendorf was here, where someone's line was on the bottom of the sewer pipe. And the video showed with nothing going on that the sewage was going up their pipe. Not without any, we weren't jetting it or anything. That was just a situation where they attached too low to the pipe, but that's what they needed to do to get the proper fall to build the house.
Isn't that also somewhat of the problem we run into on 12th place, that we replace stuff when building the splash pad? Because wasn't there things, a place there where they'd made connections, but they didn't really make them right, and it was causing problems to people there
It was
too?
causing a problem to one household over there, and that was because of where that pipe that we abandoned was located and how they attached to it. That problem is fixed now.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's another example of that, right?
There's no one solution to all these problems. There's a lot of them. And I'll say, there's a lot of them and none of it's cheap.
Anything else?
That's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up under new business, discussion on TA set aside application.
So I'm looking for council directive on this. I don't know that I have anything there's nothing in the packet about it. But I sent you this information before. Used to be called the Transportation Alternative Program. You just called it the TAP Fund. It's a federally funded fund. And small cities are eligible to get $250,000 in a match. It's an 80-20 match. Nobody put in for it because, quite frankly, $250,000 doesn't get a whole lot done. Those are small projects along the way, and you're only going to get a portion. I mean, you could get $250,000 before, and your match is $60,000, and you can get, $310,000 worth of trail work done. Well, nobody put in for it. They have to get that money back or spend it by next year. The normal application isn't until next year. RPA voted to reopen it this year and increase the max contribution to $500,000. We have a trail plan in place. In order to do this, to apply for it, if you're awarded, they're just going to pull our trail plan. Our trail plan is already part of the RPA's network for this kind of funding, so we're eligible for it because we have a plan. If we didn't have a plan,
right,
that we could apply for it, but we wouldn't get it because there's no plan. So, and then we did the plan 2019, I think, when we
Yeah,
adopted
it was pretty shortly after I got on council.
Yeah. So the plan's out there.
It was
So what
20.
I would need is approval from council to apply for the program if you so desire to do it. And here's how this works. You have to pay if you're awarded say you're awarded the $500,000 grant, your obligation is $120,000. You have to pay it all up front. You've already been pre-approved. Once it's done, they reimburse you the $500,000. Now, last time I checked, we don't have $620,000 lying around. What you would get is called a bridge loan, totally authorized to do that. Once you get the $500,000 back, you pay that out, and you can use road use funds for transportation alternative projects. And the reason you can do that is you're pulling people off of the streets and putting them on the alternate transportation program areas. They changed it to set aside because they didn't, I guess the DOT didn't like the word program. whatever. So now it's the TA set aside. So I'm looking for council to figure out council's pleasure and whether or not they want to put in for this funding. It goes away next year, then it's all gone.
What year would the work have to be done?
Next year.
What's our estimate in the trail plan right now?
Oh, gosh, I don't know, because there's so many different aspects of it. I think what we would do, because what I would need at the next meeting is a resolution, authorize me to apply for it. They reopen application this Friday, and you've got 5 weeks to apply.
Okay.
So what I would do is probably work with Dan and the Parks Commission to try and figure out which portions of the plan we can do with that amount of money and just move forward with those portions of the plan.
A couple things I'm gonna say here. Number one, we don't have any estimates on any part of that, I'm assuming. You said that?
It doesn't matter what the estimates are.
Well, sure it does.
No, it doesn't. You're only gonna do $620,000.
Okay.
You'll find out what portions that you can do for $620,000. You're gonna limit it at that.
I think I understand what you're saying. This way-
We don't, so what are you gonna do for 620,000? Where are you gonna start?
So Dan and I will work on using what he knows about what those things are going to cost and figure out the portions of the plan that will fit into that dollar amount.
Okay, number two.
Right. So the fitting is $620,000.
Number two, I struggle with adding more concrete someplace that we are struggling now to take care of the stuff we have. That's a fact. And also, if we're talking about all the sewer work that needs to be done, where's the money gonna come from? We gotta quit spending on some stuff to be able to pay for the stuff that we really need done. And-
Those are
and
two
that's it.
separate funds.
Can I say something? That's why I asked when it would have to be done, because if we have this fairway project that we're gonna use road use funds to do that street, and they gotta be done in the same year, then we're now really cutting into our,
on the road use.
what's gonna happen on our roads. That's why I was asking the timeframe, when it has to be spent, because I don't,
They have to spend that money by the end of next fiscal year.
yeah, I don't think I wanna lean towards it.
I think
It's always nice to get
worth
the
looking
money.
into. It doesn't mean, just looking into it doesn't mean we do it. But, I mean, is it something that might turn out to be beneficial? If we don't look into it, we don't know. We can always say no.
From what I hear, and you can say what fund it comes from, it's still taxpayer money no matter where it comes from, okay? And that is this. If we have any kind of development anywhere that we have to tie into an existing sewer, we're gonna have problems. We're gonna have to spend this money to get rid of it.
But that's two different types of funds.
It's still money that the taxpayers pay.
Right,
I
well,
don't care what funds it is, it's money the taxpayers pay.
well, in this case, though, this money is coming from outside
Correct.
and we have to spend it on specific projects.
Yeah.
We can't get this TAP money and use it toward the sewer as much as we'd
We're
like
still
to.
spending $120,000.
That's also true.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're spending $120,000 to get $600,000 worth of trails in your community.
And we have to maintain it. We have to plow snow on it. We have to cut grass along it.
In some cases, yes. In some cases, no.
What is our road use budget?
Well, what cases wouldn't you cut grass and plow snow?
If it's going in front of houses,
Who's gonna plow snow? Who's gonna cut the grass?
Same as a sidewalk, homeowner.
it's a sidewalk, it's just a shared use path.
Wait, can I say something?
Yeah.
Are we talking about going 10-foot wide?
No, I think 8 foot, Dan.
Because I mean, you're still doubling the homeowner's then responsibility for shoveling a sidewalk to go from 4 foot wide to 8 foot wide.
Well, look,
Who
all I can say is,
I think that's why we do the current bike path, is because
okay,
we would.
well, we did that because nobody wanted to do that. So that was the compromise that the previous city administrator made with those folks.
Right.
You don't have to do that. my point here is though, this city council has adopted a trail plan. Now, if you want to go back and revisit the trail plan and amend that, you're welcome to do that. What I will say is, if you do that, you're going to miss out on the opportunity to get $500,000 to get some of that stuff enacted. That's all.
I'm with Danny. I don't think it hurts to get this written up and look at it and see what can we get done? What could we get done if we had this money?
It's a no.
Right.
But if it's something that turns out to be feasible and benefits the citizens, it's worth looking at.
I think it's a timing
No,
issue.
just
though.
you can't just say no to not looking at everything just because you're afraid that somebody's gonna get mad that you spend $1. You know, it's not about that. We're here to try to, we're here to try to do things for these people that are sitting out here, make their community better. And that, I mean, sometimes, yeah, we might have to spend a few dollars, but it doesn't cost us anything to look at it.
All you will be on is a short window to apply. We can pull, Dan and I, if you want to do this, to at least even consider, because again, I'm not gonna put pen to paper unless council has the appetite to even consider it. And what I'm feeling is council doesn't have the appetite overall to consider it, which is fine. It's certainly your prerogative. For my opinion, then you might as well not have a trail use plan, because you're never gonna fund it.
Well, I think Councilman Eden said it though, and part of it's a timing issue.
Yeah, it's just because it's coming out of road use, we already, otherwise we don't do fairway.
I understand that. No,
Well, I mean, it's, you only have so much money. That's why I was just
Tony,
starting
how
to
much
ask, what
is
is
the
it?
road use by the end of the year? Do you know? It's like six.
Now, we're probably about 500,000.
Yeah.
At this
You have
point.
500,000 in your road use fund, and you're only spending, probably for the remainder parts of what's gonna happen in this phase of the street improvement plan, you're probably gonna spend maybe $120,000 to get those other streets taken care of. Galen, do you remember what that quote was for 14th Avenue? Was it like 60,000?
No, not off the top of my head, sorry.
I was a little shocked at how reasonable it looked. 'Cause I don't think they have as many service points, they have driveways they have to fix and all that other stuff. Third Street is a little bit more than that because of the curb stuff they have to match up to and all that. But other than that, you have money going forward.
We still have 9th Street to finish up.
Yeah, and yes.
It's like 150.
So but in my opinion, you're gonna have plenty of money in road use to do that. You're just on a short window because of the timing of, because previous years, the small cities weren't putting in for it. Now, if you're willing to move forward because of even with the timing, to say, well, now we're gonna double what we can do. If you did it with a $250,000 reimbursement, you would have a $60,000 investment. Your opportunity here is to do a $620,000 project for $120,000. If you don't want to, that's fine. That's your pleasure. I would just say, if a plan's there and on the shelf and you have an opportunity to get funding to do it and you're not going to do it, then there's no point in having the plan on the shelf.
Well, I think there's wants and needs. I think you have a plan.
Sure.
When you have a funds and you've taken care of everything else, right? Then you can go after those things. I agree with Tom here. It's, you look at this price tag for the sewer stuff, and that's just a very small percentage of the whole city. And it's like, well, but then we're gonna take this other $20,000 and put it toward trail, which.
But we can't use.
But it's not $120,000 of that fund that you would put towards the sewers.
Correct.
Again, it's still taxpayer money, right?
Understood.
Right.
This is fund accounting 101. It's different than it's not all a lump sum look at things. It's fund accounting. It's different than how you would run your household in your checkbook. It's segmented for a reason.
some money can only go to certain things.
Correct.
You have no choice.
And in some,
In
in
some of
some
those matters.
cases, Councilman, there are opportunities to utilize funds that you have in certain segments where you can use them for a project like this. You can also use general fund money. You're not gonna use sewer fund money or water fund money to do a project like this. There are only a few funding sources that you're gonna be able to do. Now, and to go along with the sewer position, you can fund that with sewer money. You can also fund it with general fund money. But I don't know why you would do that when you have a proprietary operation where you control the revenue coming in to pay for those fixes. I would not recommend you use general fund money to pay for sewer upgrades and sewer repairs, because not everybody in Comanche uses the sewer. It should be the burden of the customers to fix that.
So I would point out, I'm looking, I have a copy of the capital improvement plan. Right now, our capital improvement doesn't have to spend any money on trails until fiscal year 28, and that's $1 million. We have the estimated project cost for the entire trail plan is $3 million. We're slated to spend $1 million on fiscal year 28.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it, and looks like fiscal year 30.
And where does that money come from, Councilman?
Well, that's a darn good, this one doesn't show that where that money's
You
coming
have
from.
that in the back of that document.
Well, I only have the one page
Okay.
printed out.
So I think that's scheduled to be a debt intake, $1 million. Here's your opportunity to take what you have in your capital improvement plan, move it up a couple years, and you're getting almost $1 million worth of work for $120,000. That seems like a pretty good opportunity to make some great improvements for the community, but it's up to you.
So is this something council would like to consider providing this service to the community or not? Is what Andrew is looking for direction on whether he is interested in this or
Look
not.
into it.
I'd like to look
I
into
would
it.
like a motion and a vote for that
Make a
direction.
motion, we have them look into it.
I'll second the motion.
Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Bowman,
Yes.
Councilman Klon,
Yes.
Councilman Edens.
No.
Councilman Farrell,
To look into it, yes.
Councilman Weller.
Yes.
Is there any communication from the city attorneys?
Oh, Your Honor.
Andrew,
Yes, Your Honor. The journey to get to where we are with the splash pad has been very tedious and challenging and gut wrenching in some places. I want to thank the Park and Rec Commission for their hard work in creating this, for Dan's hard work on that project, the entire public works staff who worked very hard at resolving the sewer issue. I want to thank our insurance company for accommodating the request and direction that we gave them and being Johnny on the spot. And I want to thank all of the citizens who had those issues in their basement with those backups. I spoke with every one of them, and I think for the most part, they were understanding of the situation and knowing that we were going to make them whole, I think brought them some relief. It was some inconvenience for them. I admit that. And in some cases, people didn't even have damage. They just let us know. And in one case, someone was moving and their moving boxes got wet. And I just went to Walmart and bought her some totes and came back. There you go. She wanted to bring them back. I said, no, just go. And then someone just said they used a lot of Mr. Clean in the basement to clean some stuff up. So we brought her a bottle of Mr. Clean and replaced it. So, you know, we tried our best to accommodate the people that were there. In the work subsequent to that, as Galen pointed out, we followed the volume. We put a lot of water down that line, more than twice as much as what the splash pad really puts out. And we had no issues. It's been running all day this morning, no issues. I'll say that I sat out there for most of the day today. We started out at 8 a.m. doing some controls with the levels and everything and going through a punch list. And there are some items that still need to be modified a little bit or corrected a little bit. They're not huge deals. In consultation with the city engineer and public works director, we decided that it would be a okay to go. Consulted with the mayor. We were all thumbs up. It's been running all day. And I can say from sitting out there all day, I would highly recommend, if you have the time, to just go sit out there on a hot day, sit in the pavilion and listen to the kids. The joy and fun that they're having makes this entire heartache and struggle completely worthwhile. It's completely fulfilling in the end. My favorite comment was a kid who was talking to the news media that was there, because WQED was there getting some background story on it. She said, "This is so much fun." And that's what this work is about. This is why you do things. There are kids out there right now. What time is it? For another 32 minutes. They're out there in the water having fun. And the other one that was interesting is watching the little kids getting carried away, screaming because they didn't want to leave. That's what this is about. I want to thank the council for your patience along the way. And again, those folks on Park and Rec, they have been fighting with this and trying to get this going for a long time. And here we are. So I'm very proud of all that work, and thank you, council, for your patience and understanding, and the phone calls. I enjoy the conversations that we've had about what's going on and reassuring you that we're looking at stuff, and it's a great deal for this community. I predict your social hub right now is going to be in that pavilion with all the parents that are there letting their kids do their thing, and they're going to talk. I think part of the plan is to put some kind of message board underneath the pavilion, just so we can hang stuff in there and let people know things that are going on in the community, because that's where the parents are going to be congregating. And let's get them where they're at so we can get more information out to people. And that is all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I would just like to say thank you to everybody involved with the splash pad as well. On the way here tonight, there was probably 20 kids there at 5:30. So it was nice to see. Also, on Friday, July 4th, up at Clinton's 4th of July Festival, I'll be in the dunk tank at 2:45, and all donations raised from that during my session will be donated to the Friends of the Comanche Police Department. So, any communication from Councilman Edens, Councilman Klon?
Yes, Your Honor, in reviewing the material for the P&Z meeting next week, I think it is. Swimming pools and pools, there's an ordinance for that. It actually separates swimming pools and pools. The swimming pool, define it as a water-filled enclosure, blah, 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 blah. Then it has a definition of a pool is a body of standing water in a structure, basin, or depression above or below grade, having an interior depth of more than 2 feet. Here's where I'm going with this is any runoff ponds need to be fenced in. Do we know that?
Wasn't my radar.
I bring that up now because it may be something that needs to be brought up for the meeting next week with P&Z.
Are we digging a retention pond at Fairway?
Pardon me?
Are we not digging a retention pond for Fairway, or is Fairway digging a
There.
retention?
There are a few retention ponds in town.
Okay, so what I hear is those need to be fenced.
Pardon me?
What I'm hearing is a retention pond needs to
Yes.
be fenced if it's 2 feet deep.
Yes.
Okay.
Is your desire to enforce that code or amend the code?
My desire?
Yeah,
Enforce it.
okay. we'll consider that. And yeah, we'll let those folks know.
All right. Anything else, Tom?
No.
Councilman Farrell?
No, Your Honor.
Councilman Bowman?
Oh, I've been saving up. You guys missed me last meeting, so. Let me go a couple things. First off, I want to thank Tony Blumey and Randy Cook for their service to the community and the boards in which they served. They did a great job with that. Pleased to see the 9th Avenue culvert repair is done and that street is opened. That's wonderful news. I would like to see what we got to do to get the dock area around the library cleaned up. That huge pile of debris, I've received some feedback. It's not very attractive look for the communities to have that big pile of basically river debris. Instead, I know in past we've used FEMA funds during following floods to get that cleaned up, but it would be nice if we can get that stuff cleaned out. I'd like to congratulate Gail Grimm, who was the Grow Clinton Community Leader of the Year, announced at the last annual meeting. Well done. I also want to echo what Andrew said about the splash pad. I drove by and there's just kids frolicking. It's just nice to see. It's nice to see that something we've been working on for so long finally come to fruition and see that. While I was in, at the last meeting, I drove down to Texas with my son, going through Oklahoma. As you go by freeway exits, every one of them, where there's a town, there's a nice blue sign up and says, come visit, a nice friendly font, come visit our town. And here's some of the cool things you'll see when you go there. List a park, it lists whatever. And I thought that's something we could do here is if you're coming up to Route 67 and you want to drive by Comanche, why don't we put up signs that say, hey, come visit, come see our splash pad, Central Park, Swan Slough, the pocket parks and things like that. We could do something, I think, relatively inexpensively with the permission of the DOT, and we could point people into our town. Let's bring them in and let them go look for Central Park and the splash pad and so on. The riverfront, the Swan Slough and the boat docks and all that kind of stuff. I think that's a good way to do that. And the last thing is we recently did the city administrator's review, but I feel like we've left that process incomplete. And so I'm asking if and I talked to Andrew about this already, but I'm asking at the next meeting, if we have a session a closed session, we can finish up the review process, go over comments, look at goal setting and so on to address any improvements which may have been identified. But I'd just like to, let's complete that process. So I'd like that to be in the next meeting if we can. And that's all I've got for right now. That's it.
To add on to your sign thing, we talked about this.
Yeah.
One of the things I've been trying to look at too is updating wayfinding signs within the city. So they'll have multiple boards on there to say police department, library, and it's at multiple locations so that people, once they get into the city, are able to find their way around if they don't know their way around.
Right.
There's a program for that. The prison sign group up in Anamosa, they can do those. I think when I talked to her at League of Cities, where was it last year? Wasn't Coralville?
Well, League last year was out west.
Okay, well, it was
West Coast.
when it was in Coralville.
Mhm.
When I talked to her, and she said they're anywhere from $600 to $800 a piece. So
That's pretty inexpensive.
it is. You need a few of them.
Mhm.
But you can customize them and you put the city logo on it and just have all of those things located on something so people find their way around.
Councilman Miller?
I just want to thank the citizens that are sitting out here for coming in here and listening to what's going on. You're not going by rumors. You're getting the facts the same as we do. That's what we need. We need you in those chairs. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good job, Dave. Galen?
Thank you, Mayor. A few things to touch on. We have a new cemetery sexton. Mike started on Monday. Learned all that going forward. going to make an offer to get Mike's replacement either Wednesday or Thursday, pending a few things happening there.
Hackshaw. You said 2 mics.
Yeah, different mic, yeah. This past week, we've had 2 valves replaced that were leaking for a little while. We had to find a new contractor for it. That took me a while to do. Anthony in 15th place, and then 3rd and 13th place both got done. And we were able to, he was able to pull the guts out and leave the valve body in. So that saved us a good chunk of money on both of those right there. After that, we found a new leak. There's a water leak starting Monday on 700 block of 2nd Street. That got repaired today. Then this afternoon, we found another leak on 3rd Street over by 15th Avenue. And there was a valve there that was getting under replacement next anyway. So we're going to have the contractor do both those jobs at one time on Thursday. By the time we got emergency locates in. Touched on 9th Avenue culvert is open as of the 8 a.m. this morning. They actually pulled the barricades Monday night, but it was after hours, so I didn't do it. And it was my mistake for not getting an email out to all the council, letting know that it was there. I'll let Chief Schmitz touch on touch a truck if he's going to. Okay, that was pretty good. And that's about all I have for this evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Galen. Chief Shooty?
Just one thing, Your Honor, just want everyone to be aware that Comanche is part of the route for the first responder ride this year. So we will have Saturday, July 12th. So they'll be coming to town around lunchtime. We're doing a lunch fundraiser at the fire station. So for all the people that are participating, but they come into town, they buy gas, they patronize our businesses and things like that, but there will be a lot of side-by-sides and I don't know, Jeeps and whatever else, but the first responder ride, we just want you to know that. So
All right,
they'll be here for an hour or two and then they'll move on to their next stop, so.
perfect. Thank you. Chief Schmitz?
Just an update on the touch a truck for those in the crowd. The police department has a nonprofit organization that's raised probably $50,000, $60,000 in the last few years. They held their first touch a truck event on Sunday. Had several area businesses with some of their large equipment for the kids to climb on and honk horns and all sorts of stuff. So IV donated a bunch of water and popsicles for the kids, and Kelly Girls Pizza showed up for us, and a pretty good turnout. So compared to that.
Excellent.
Thank you.
One more thing I need to add, Your Honor. It looks like 3 p.m. Thursday, we're going to do an actual ribbon cutting with Grow Clinton at the splash pad. If you're available, please come. It'll be a nice picture. And the good thing is it'll be running, so we'll get a bunch of wet kids to come in the picture too. That'll be fun. 3 o'clock Thursday.
I think you should run through it. Yeah.
Well,
No,
I will consider doing that fully suited. How about you, Braden? Are you gonna accept that challenge? I'll do it with you. I'm not holding your hand though.
Gail?
Just because of the microphone. Thank you, Councilman Bowman. I appreciate that call out, shout out. Also, I wanted to thank Mayor Pruitt for coming to our toddler time a couple of weeks ago. I'll have a real, actual update on all of our things next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan, do you have anything to add?
I don't have anything else down for anything for me. I think we pretty much covered the splash pad issue and questions be happy to answer.
All right. Tony?
Nothing, Your Honor.
All right. Do we have any public comments?
Dave Willis, 1433 3rd Street. I get the feeling the city is now trying to put its responsibility of citizen safety now on the public because they have put info on the website. Not everybody has access to a website. For example, I have friends in town from Alaska, Colorado, Texas, and Idaho. They have no idea about this train stuff. No idea. Let's see. Yeah, everybody visiting should know how to contact the railroad. with the
Mr. Willis,
signs, with the signs.
These signs are on every crossing.
Okay,
All
but,
the same
we
information
are
that you-
citizens of this town and they're not. And they're freaking
Understand.
out because something's going on.
This is universal all over the country.
Yeah, take your website. I don't care. Instead of the 7 million for the library, let's put some money towards maybe an overpass over the railroad tracks. Provide more safety for more families of all ages. All ages. Also, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Yakshaw on his retirement. Thank him. Thank all of you, city councilmen. Appreciate it. Hope you all have a good 4th of July. Oh, thanks for pulling the docks. The water's coming up. Yep, but yeah, thank you very much for all that you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any more public comments?
It's a Third Street connection. John Dixon, 1429 Third Street. I want to talk about EMS. Again, as Mr. Willis said, I think that going to the railroad is a fine idea. They're not going to do anything. They've proven that before. We've contacted our senators. I have. They're not going to do anything. You can contact the state. This is a local problem that should be handled locally. I have a solution. The solution is simple, but it does require money. And that is putting EMS on the other side of the street. That's all we have to do. If you think that you're going to get anywhere, let me talk about response times. If a call comes in to the fire department for a heart attack on 3rd Street where I live, and I'm 77 years old, very likely to have one. It's going to take them 5 minutes to mobilize and then a few minutes to get from the fire station. And if they have any blockage, it isn't, what you're talking about is a breakdown. I'm talking about a straight train going through town, blocking all the intersections, which they do. 5 minutes and I'm dead. So the only answer is to put EMS on the other side of the street or a bypass going over so they know which route they can go. Because now they might go down one route, there's a train. It's moving, it's not blocking, it's moving. They go to another intersection. These trains block every intersection in the city of Comanche for over 5 minutes when they're moving. You're not going anywhere with the railroad, so forget it. You can do it if you want. It's not going anywhere. This is a local problem that should be handled locally. I'm going to say to the city council, and I respect your job, it's a very difficult job, but safety is number one priority that the citizens are asking for. Secondly is safety includes fire, EMS, and police. We don't have adequate EMS on the other side of the river. It's simple. You just put EMS on the other side of the river. If you get EMS there, that saves people's lives. They have to get back across the track to the hospital. God bless them if they get to the hospital without any cardiac care. But they get to the hospital. But the major force is getting advanced cardiac life support to the person on the other side of the track. It can't be done any other way. I'm sorry, it can't be done any other way. I have a solution to my problem. It costs money. And I've listened to all the other aspects that fall into my same priority list for the city council. Safety, public works. Public works includes sewer and water. Anything else we do, like library, grocery stores, trails, they're all important, but they don't rise above those other priorities. That's where our funding should go. I have a solution for funding. We have right now a debt coming due, I'm understanding on Washington Boulevard, that amounts to about $360,000 a year for a bunch of years. That can fund all of this. Now, I think you should be honest to the citizens when you say it doesn't raise taxes, because it does raise taxes. It doesn't raise taxes over a present level because the debt is coming due, but it does raise taxes over if we just allowed that debt to die. So it does raise taxes, but at least in this case, it's raising taxes for the priorities of the city, which is safety and public works. That's all I have to say until we get our first death. The other thing about, Tom mentioned about the water, I personally took care of a baby who died in a 1-foot doggy swimming pool. So any water standing in this city needs to be fenced. That's all I'll say about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any more public comments?
Jess Paul, 1924 14th Street. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Mine's just a question, actually, for Galen. Thanks. Was, you mentioned 14th and Hiawatha really need to be fixed, replaced, if possible, of course. But you also mentioned there's a break there somewhere.
There's a hole in the clay tile, yes.
Is there? And you'd have to dig that up, is that what you said?
Get to, yeah.
Ken, you also mentioned lining. Is that cheaper than digging it up?
Generally, yes.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, it's just something to consider.
Yeah.
Might be, I don't know if it's faster or not. I know from people that I know down there, that, that's just a terrible problem. That sewer and all those roots will be back soon. It's summertime. And I think that's it for today.
Thank you.
There was a comment. You spoke about working with the railroads. I did work for railroads for several decades. From a couple departments, one of them being the law department and claims. And when a train stops out here, and there's no emergency, they don't care. You can call up, they'll be nice, yeah. I want to see how long it takes. I'm gonna call a train, see how long they're gonna be there. Well, maybe they'll just tell you right away. Maybe there's some car trouble. Maybe they can't get across the intersection with the UP. Or maybe there's some engine trouble. You've got a couple of old hands probably because they're doing this run. One's a conductor and he's gonna have to get his butt off and walk down and pull the train, break the train, and he's gonna have to put it back together again. That train's it's gonna lose all kinds of time, and those dispatchers aren't gonna wanna do that. And that's why over the years, if you talk to other people, you'll note that, well, even one of the previous police chiefs, had been down ready to write tickets, just mad dog, hate you people. You're gonna have to move that train. They don't. I think the ordinance might have said 15 minutes. They don't care. Unless you say emergency, because an emergency, if you block, there better be a real reason that train's there and somebody could die, and they don't want that. That's expensive. But having you sit there forever isn't. But good luck. I pity the poor person that's going to try and fix that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just so council's understanding, the federal law changed where local ordinances can't override that 15-minute rule if they're making a required federal government change or a federal government inspection.
That's all.
Yeah.
Cool language.
Yeah, it is. But that's what the federal law says. That's why they're able to get away with it and block them so long. And used to be, you could cite them for violating the speed limit. You could establish a speed limit for trains through your town. You can't do that anymore either. So lots of federal government changes have affected how we're able to address issues with railroad in our community, right?
As far as even the crossings go, if the feds put in any money on a crossing, so much as a piece of red reflective tape, you can't go after the railroads for it because that's the federal exemption. Anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any more public comments?
Tim Bloomer, 1910 Oak Trail Drive. This is concerning the cattle fence put adjacent to our properties out there by the Flinker Brothers LLC. They came out there to our houses May 3rd, told us who they were. They bought the pasture behind us. They were going to put cattle out there and they're going to put a new fence. And by the way, we are obligated to help pay for half of that. A lot of us are caught unaware by this. And from the time they told us, the first introduction to the time they put the fence up was about a week. We had no time to dispute anything. I had a tree removed off of my yard without my consent. I had neighbors, same thing happened to them. My biggest question is, since we're zoned residential, does this law apply to us out there? He's using Iowa law to get us to pay for that, or trying to get us to pay for it. And another question is, I understand he had no building permit and followed no due process to put this fence up. Are we obligated to, pay for that too? I guess what I'm looking for is some understanding or direction on what our rights are here, and is what he's trying to do to us out there, is that right?
I think you'd have to consult your attorney. I mean, we would have to consult ours in this matter, but I think that that's where you probably should start with.
Our attorneys are prepared to
Yeah.
address this issue, so I would turn it over to Randy if you want to. And
Cool.
speak on what you are aware of.
Yeah, go ahead.
You turn your mic on, please. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, what you're talking about, sir, is a border fence. And border fences in Iowa are controlled by statute. And the statute talks about something called fence viewers. If parties can't agree regarding the installation of a border fence, the fence viewers can be approached. If it's out in the county, there are township trustees that become fence viewers. Under Iowa code, if the fence is in the city limits, the city council becomes fence viewers. In your situation, the fence was built and installed before it was brought to the attention of the city. And the case law, and I've reviewed this also with County Attorney Mike Wolf, and we both concur, is the case law says that once the fence is built, the fence viewers lose jurisdiction over the matter. They have no more control, and it basically becomes a dispute between the parties involved, and your recourse, either side's recourse, is with the courts. But my advice to the city council right now would be is that since the fence is installed, it has no jurisdiction between you and the flankers. Now, the issue regarding the building of the fence without a permit, that's a separate issue. That isn't going to make the fence be removed. There may be some fines or whatever for building without a permit. But the issue between you and the flankers is now beyond anything that the city council has any authority to have any input into. Under Iowa law, a person can, a property owner, especially agricultural property owners, can require their neighbors to contribute towards the costs of border fences. And I don't want to go beyond that, and I don't want to offer legal advice regarding individuals without knowing all of the particulars. But there are statutes. The border fence law is statutory in the state of Iowa. And Iowa's an agricultural state, and the courts have ruled that even if a landowner gets no use of a fence, doesn't want a fence, if it's a border fence, they can be required to contribute towards the cost of it. Now, there are issues within that regarding how much and whether things are reasonable or not, but that's the general overview of the situation, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So if I can add, while we're talking, so Mr. Boomer contacted me, and I went and I looked at his property and took a couple pictures of the fence in question and where the tree got tore out, dragged over and left on the other property. But in 1A of the code, it's respective owners shall, upon written request of either owner, be compelled to erect and maintain the partition fence or contribute thereto and keep the same in good repair. It seems like the first step is before the fence goes up, the property owners are notified, not I'm going to put a fence up and then notify the property owners. It feels like, to me, like.
I'm not saying that the proper procedure was followed here.
Okay. All right.
I'm saying that based upon the procedure that was followed, the city council no longer has any authority in the matter.
But we don't, because the fence is erected before the property owners were
Yes.
contacted,
The
we lose jurisdiction over the matter.
correct. Based upon my interpretation, Mike Wolf's interpretation, and the Iowa case law that we've reviewed.
Okay.
Chuck Gifford, 2020 Oak Trail Drive, same fence issue. What are our options now that it's already gone too far evidently? We weren't given any written notice. We never signed anything. We were just given an invoice, so proper procedures probably weren't followed. What's our recourse? I mean, can the city help? I mean, is it
All we can do is find them.
at all, or,
Sounds like the only thing we can go
it
after
sounds
is-
like since they just
Non-criminal
ramrodded it
offense.
through that we're SOL, so.
I didn't say that. I would recommend that you contact your own private legal counsel.
So there's no third party we can get a hold of without being legal, I'd like to just have somebody independent say that we're on the hook for X amount. There's the cost of the fence. They also want us to pay for removal, seeding, all this other, stuff that doesn't necessarily pertain, but
Again, that would,
it's a gray area that doesn't seem like anybody's been able to tell us for sure one way or the other, so.
I'm not authorized to provide private legal
I-
advice to citizens.
No, I was just looking for help to which direction to go, if you guys could help us out at all, so.
The
it sounds like we're-
city is not able to provide any
Yeah.
assistance. on
No,
that.
no, not, but I
Right,
mean,
or any direction, other than you should probably consult someone in a legal field to give you that advice.
okay, so, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
No.
Yeah.
Megan Goddard, live at 1214 Hiawatha Lane. I actually just kind of have a question. Is there like a time frame set for when we're gonna find out about our sewer? As in, like, there was the video and the pictures. Is there a time frame when we're gonna hear about our own
Galen,
connection?
I can meet with you and show you the video.
Okay.
Of your section.
there's going to be a report provided by Klein. And I think Galen, and correct me if I'm wrong, for those locations for individual connections where we find an issue in your connection, you'll be provided a photo of that. If it is a problem for the property owner, because it's beyond the connection,
Okay.
then it'll be your choice to fix it or not.
Okay.
Right.
So are you only notifying those that had issues?
An issue. If we see that the line is clear as far as we can see, it's like 6 inches in.
It shows 6 to 10 inches up, depending on the
Yeah.
lane, how high the camera sits. Like that.
That's all we'll be able to know. And if we don't see an issue, we just say, hey, for the first 6 inches, your pipe looks clear. I don't know what's going on beyond that, but.
I mean, I have a plumber. It's
Yeah.
not a big deal. The other thing is, I emailed you.
Mhm.
So wasn't really expecting anything to happen today. Luckily, I was off, but we get text messages sent out about roads being closed, roads opening back up. Can we get a text message? Like if there's something big that has happened, like Hiawatha, several houses flooded. We're going to retry the splash pad today so that people can kind of be aware, so that there's not like a, hey, yo, I wouldn't have been home. I would have been at work.
Sure.
And nobody would have been there to look at my sewer come in
Well,
my basement if it
Yeah,
had.
yeah, so that text message would have to go out to everybody in the text message system. We can't target text messages for individual persons or in a certain area. So we generally don't do that. I think in that case there, we didn't have a full understanding too of how many houses were affected but personally, I think going forward, you're not gonna have any more issues over there.
We
It's-
spent about 2.5 hours adjusting the flows and all the sprayers this morning. And then once it was, okay, we're going, I know Mike checked the sewers twice, I checked the sewers twice, about every hour and a half throughout the day. We popped the one at 12th place and, Hiawatha and 14th Avenue, 14th place. And as long as the flow was good there, we were okay, because it would back up if it was coming from 14, and it wouldn't get there if it was backing up to Hiawatha.
And we did that level of flow test on Thursday last week, right? Was it Thursday, Friday? And it was Friday, that's right. At over 200 gallons per minute, which is twice what the splash pad is set to run at. So, and nobody had any backups after that. So,
I mean, we've had
Yeah.
issues for
Would there be
quite a
an issue
while
with
problem.
putting a text out saying you're starting it up though, to the whole population of?
well, I think if we did
That
that,
way kids would
no,
know too.
well,
Parents and kids, everybody would know.
we did it. If we put that notice out to everybody, they're gonna assume it's open and they're gonna show up, right?
Isn't that what you were doing?
But we did that with our Facebook post. As soon as we decided this morning to open it, we did that.
But could there be,
Um,
would there be a
and-
problem, like just saying we're testing it to see if we could open? I mean, like, it would still go out to everybody, but to just say, we're testing it to see if it could open.
That's what
at
we
that
did the
point.
week before, though.
You tested it, it didn't open, we have to retest it. I guess
Is it
my
hard to
problem
figure
is,
out?
again, and I'll leave it at this. There was nobody going to be home at my house today. There would have been nobody there to check and make sure that it didn't come up into the basement. I understand you tested it on Thursday and things went fine.
Mhm.
It's just a peace of mind.
I understand you're nervous about it.
Very.
Yes, I understand that. I appreciate that. We did have other people along the line monitoring their basements too for us. I mean, you may not have
But
been
it didn't
home.
hit everybody when it flooded either. I
we-
did get lucky this time, thank God.
We had people who had flood issues monitoring.
Is it difficult to put that text out though? Is that like an issue?
No, it's not a difficult thing to put the text out. Where I was at the splash pad this morning when we decided to open it, and I just did the Facebook post, but I sat out there too, and I guess, I could have contacted the administrative assistant, hey, why don't you do a text message out on that too? And,
Just
But-
more information is better than text.
yeah, we can work on that.
Do we have any more public comments?
Gary Hill, 620 Third Street, Comanche. You've gone after people, a while back, you sent letters out to people that wanted to fix their houses. You've gone after people to clean up other property. I look at a junkyard outside my window every day. There's no reason I need to look at a junkyard. I've come to the council before that. It gets half-assed cleaned up and it turns right back into a junkyard. There's no reason that I should have to look at a junkyard out my front window and everybody going down 7th Street to look at a junkyard. Because you guys don't make it clean it up. And there's junk being brought in there every day. And it's a drop-off spot. I watch people drop off hot water heaters. I watch people drop off refrigerators. There's no reason for that, a junkyard to be in a residential neighborhood. And I think it needs to stop. You've had a business in my neighborhood that you made clean up, and they did it. There's no reason a resident has to have a junkyard in their yard. That's all.
Thank you. Do we have any more public comments?
John Dawson, JD Transmission, just down the street down here. I know we talked about salvage vehicles, junk vehicles, things like that. I've been to your office and we talked a couple years back, I think it was, on vehicles, and you gave me the
It was
same
on
letter.
Good Friday.
Yeah, it was, yeah, there you go. Anyway, I mean, frankly, when the fence you guys are talking about putting up, like wanting, I mean, like right out in front of the whole business, not to see anything? Is that what they're talking about?
No, it's whatever you can put on your property to hide those classified junk vehicles as
Okay.
as a place to put them.
So basically, I've worked in many shops in different communities, and Comanche is a beautiful town. In every community, people don't like to see auto repair shops. They just don't want to see them, period. And
That's
you
not
know,
for me, that's for
I
them.
know, but I'm, getting involved. So basically what I'm trying to really say is, I mean, I want to work with the city. You know, we have been getting vehicles out. We've had them ticketed. I actually had one ticket had been there for 2 years. And the ticket came back to us, then we had to pay the ticket because there was no owner to the vehicle. You know, I have vehicles there now that have been sitting. There's one in the corner there. It's been sitting now for over a year. And I've talked to the customer multiple times. Get this thing out of here. You're not getting it fixed. You're not paying the money. Just get it out of here. I've got a 5.0 on Google star rating, and you start getting rid of people's cars, and then that depreciates as you got rid of their vehicle. I try and work with the customers as best I can, and I mean, I will work with the city with everything they need. You know, what they deem as junk. I mean, I remember the paperwork that I gotten from Mr. Kidda here, and basically it boiled down to, you know, if it had a missing tailpipe, a broken mirror, you know, it was a junk car. You know, so I'm more than welcome. I remember talking to him in his office, and he directed me to the police station because I'd heard the police were down there and took pictures of multiple vehicles. I went to the police station twice and never got anything back. And what do you want us to clean up? What do we need to do? You know, so that's just what I want to be more part of it than just, here's your fines, you know, here you go. So, I mean, if you want to do stuff like that, we can do that. That's my main goal.
I would think a car left on a business for a year would constitute an abandoned vehicle. It's pretty clear.
Yeah, no,
code.
did you deal with getting rid of somebody's car? Because Troy here, who owned TMP Autos, he had a customer dropped off their vehicle, and he's been sitting out for what, 2 years, 3 years? And these people were threatening to sue him for getting rid of his car, getting rid of their car, you know?
Police come down and ticket it, and they had to change it from a 48-hour to a 10-day ticket. So I had to sit there another 10 days on my trailer.
So, but yeah, I know we do need to get some vehicles, you know, moved and stuff like that, but I'm just, you know, I want to cooperate with the city instead of just getting fines and you need to put a fence up,
And
you know?
I think I could speak for everybody up here that we are definitely willing to work with you. I mean,
Perfect.
we're not.
Yeah.
Yes, we are, sir.
We've already went through this. You guys come up with the rules that you wanted to follow as junk vehicle. You come out, none of the vehicles, but a few were junk. So you come back and you change the rules to fit you. You ain't working with us at all. You're just trying to run us out of business.
We are not trying to do
Trying
that,
to get us
sir.
out in the back lot, back off on the back drag where no customers will find us. Sorry, we're on the main drag. That's where a business needs to be, is on the main drag, not hidden way back in the boondocks.
And the only place we can put a fence would be in the front. I don't think that would be any better than looking at cars sitting there. I mean, going through a nice town and say, look at these fences, you know? So it's my opinion. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Any more public comments?
No matter what I say, you ain't gonna change. You're gonna do what you want.
Council have anything for future agendas?
Yes, I have one. I'd like to place a closed session to discuss the planning and execution of the 9th Avenue repairs.
I will possibly take that into consideration.
Okay.
Thank you. We will take a slight recess and go into closed session.